Welcome to Even Tacos Fall Apart, a podcast where we explore the complexities of mental health, resilience, and the power of personal stories. I'm MommaFoxFire, and in today's episode, we're embarking on a thought-provoking discussion surrounding the topic of therapists and their own experiences with mental illness. Therapists are dedicated individuals who support and guide others on their mental health journeys, but they're not immune to their own struggles. But the prevailing expectation is that therapists remain silent about their own mental health challenges to their clients, to those around them, all in an effort to avoid the stigma that accompanies it. So today we're breaking the silence. I had the pleasure of being joined by two incredible guests, Joan and Jane Landino. Joan and Jane are not only experienced therapists, but they're individuals who have also faced their own battles with mental illness. Today, we're exploring the unique perspective of therapists who openly discuss their own struggles and the importance of breaking the stigma around mental health within the field of therapy. In this candid conversation, we'll get deep into topics that challenge common misconceptions about therapy and therapists, and Joan and Jane will share their insights and examples of the transformative potential of different therapeutic approaches. We'll also shed light on the importance of addressing and processing trauma and how it contributes to our overall well-being. Get ready for an insightful and transformative conversation that challenges traditional perspectives and encourages us to embrace vulnerability and authenticity. So let's jump into this engaging episode of Even Tacos Fall Apart. Welcome, everybody, to another Mental Health Monday. Thank you so much for being here with us. I'm super excited for our conversation tonight. We're going to be talking about therapists and mental illness, and my guests tonight are Joan and Jane Landino, the therapy twins, which we've never had. We've never had therapy twins on here before. We've never had twins of any kind. So Joan and Jane are identical twin sisters, former therapists turned psychiatric entertainers, and lifelong seekers who use their own brand of humor and vulnerability to tell revealing stories about their childhood, family, marriages, divorce, dating, and motherhood, and how they uncovered and overcame all their trauma. Their mission is to help people love more and fear less, which I love. Joan and Jane help people understand and heal trauma and get out ahead of the devastating impact it can have on relationships, families, and communities. Using the connection of their unique relationships, shared history, love of irreverence, and sense of humor, Joan and Jane find out the why behind the trauma and look for the root emotions that surround the scenario. And I have some links for you guys for socials. If you are interested in checking out their book, the title of their book is Under the Hood, Therapy Twins, How We Hotwired Our Brain, Calm the Fuck Down, and Let That Shit Go. So if y'all are interested in that, which what a dang title, I'm telling you. I've got a link for that as well where you can check them out. Thank you guys, Joan and Jane, so much for being here. If you can just give us a, hey, I'm Joan and I'm Jane.
I'm Joan. Hi, thanks, Mama. I'm Jane.
Very nice to have you guys on here for sure. So thank you guys, first of all, just for coming on here and joining us. I think this is going to be a fantastic conversation.
Well, we think so too, because we were talking earlier, things seem to kind of flowed right into place on our way to this podcast, and
normally it's a disaster
because we are still a work in progress. So that's where the humor comes in, because if you can't laugh at yourself, my goodness, if anyone keeps laughing at me and then I have an issue about it, my goodness, what a terrible life. So now I just laugh at myself.
Well, we're all works in progress. That is for sure.
Yes.
For those who are here in the chat live, we do have a question queue open. If you have a question, put !Q, type it into the chat, and I'll make sure to ask our guest the question and fit it in where possible. So to kind of get us started, can you just tell us a little bit more about your experiences and what made you each become interested in specializing in mental health?
Sure. I followed in Jane's footsteps. I'm the younger twin. I didn't even want to be a nurse at first, so I followed her into being a nurse 2 years later, and she told me I had to do medical nursing first, and I said that, well, the community told me, and they said you can't just be a psychiatric nurse, and I said, watch me, and I did. I went right into psychiatry. So since 1984, I have worked in the field of psychiatry, which was wonderful because it was helping me also be the comedian that I always wanted to be, but I suffered from such anxiety, couldn't get on stage. So it was excellent. But Jane, oh boy.
So technically, I didn't really want to be a nurse, but that's the thing I picked out of one or, maybe a choice of three, I thought, from our middle class background. And I knew I wanted to go into psych, mostly because I didn't like the nursing outfit back in the 70s. And there was this cap and all this white you had to wear, and we were tall. And oh my goodness, you could go into psychiatry and wear street clothes. And I'm like, oh my goodness, that's what I want. But I did a little medicine first and then went into psych just to figure out my own illness. And it was more, depression,
which is more common than people think.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Not depression. I mean, getting into the field.
Yep.
Oh yeah, all of it. Sure. And then, diagnosing myself and then figuring out, some tips where I could get better, etc. Yeah. And, we went from there.
Yeah. I love that. It's interesting. I just read a study snippet. I didn't read the whole study because I don't usually read all of the whole studies, but listen, some of them are really long.
Yes, they are.
But this one was about what they were calling me search instead of research. They were calling it me search with an M. And the way that they were describing it was just like you were saying, I have this, I want to study this to know more about myself. And they were talking about how that's been a little bit of a stigma. You're not supposed to admit that you have anything. And then you're definitely not supposed to research it if that's what you have. So, but the whole study, like the baseline of the study was that actually that's a positive thing. So It's really cool.
I never understood why you couldn't say it, because if you went to a primary care doctor and he broke his arm when he was a kid and you had a broken arm, he would tell you that. And also he even said that he used to go sailing with one of his patients. And again, in psychiatry, oh my God, you can never be a friend with a patient. My God, that.
Let alone go sailing.
Oh, and so in AA though, it's required, and in NA, it's required. So we felt, why not?
Yeah. I agree.
It actually disarmed people. We had people telling us stuff. We actually didn't want to hear all of your secrets, but it was amazing on how much people would disclose once you disclosed. Yeah. And we don't mean when you're actively anxious or actively depressed and crying.
Right.
You don't come out doing it that way. But yes, okay. I think I jumped ahead, but yeah.
That's okay. We'll get there. So what were some of your favorite things working in the mental health field and psychiatry, and what were some of the biggest challenges for you?
Some of my favorite things before, let's say, money cuts and things that took away from the profession, some of my favorite things was doing things with patients and being told more frequently than you could imagine that the only difference between the staff on this side of the glass window and the patients, the people on the other side of the glass window, the only difference between us is we hold the keys.
Yeah.
And so in the back offices, people often would be very open and honest. And nowadays, people don't really do that either. But anyway, just being able to do things with people and watch them get better. And, Joan worked a lot longer at a long-term facility, which exists no longer, of course. And
at that point, we were able to go on ski trips overnight. We always we called them patients because they were inpatient. When we were nurse practitioners, it was clients because it's outpatient. Mm-hmm. But it was a routine evening. People would take patients out to a pizza place or, a carnival or an AA meeting or wherever you wanted to go, because come to find out, back in that building where we cared for people and did things with them, with trauma, in order to heal, you actually have to be validated, and then by reintegrating, you have to do normal things with human beings, feel safe again, and then you can move on. But nowadays, we don't have that. That was one of the first cuts after 1987, I think, was occupational therapy. And in psychiatry, she and he organized all of that, and we all did it. It was great. But
yeah.
Now it's kind of just like a revolving door. People are sick long term. People that probably wouldn't have been, myself included, back in the day, if you got all that care that we were just talking about. And now it's kind of just like not unusual for people to want to be in therapy very long term.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
We end up, it's not even healthy anymore.
Right. Yeah. That's kind of what I was thinking is like, it sounds like that's a healthier way to do it, where it's, you just kind of get in there, you do whatever treatment is necessary, including whatever exposure or reintegration is necessary, and you focus on it. And that's kind of your focus for a while. And then you kind of turn it over, where now it's not that way. It's like, okay, you get an hour every other week to work on your shit. And if you don't get it done in that amount of time, you're just out of luck.
And I just thought of another thing that was really different from not that I never want to go back in time, but in the early 80s, when I guess there was a lot of money to put into medicine and psychiatry, where we spent so much time with them and everything. And nowadays we spend only a little bit of time. Come to find out, veterans, they can't seem to move forward either. They're so neglected. And there's a guy that his job is like the occupational therapist we were talking about. He takes veterans out hunting and, all kinds of activities, because if you don't, number one, get validated, unfortunately, human beings, that's so embarrassing that we actually need that. And you can validate yourself. It's not that you have to have somebody else do it, but we really actually have to do the community thing. Otherwise, we're not going to get better. And how many people stay home and think a pill or a video by themselves is going to work?
Yeah.
A video sometimes can work, depending on the video.
Sure.
I would ask you to expand on that, but do you have a serial killer or true crime story that fascinates you?
We both have the one, but we don't usually share men, but in serial killers, we share.
I think, I'm so sorry.
No, it's all good.
I think there's reasons for it too, because
he was around when we
were growing up. We were teenagers in the 70s when Ted Bundy was killing people on both coasts. And we had a personal attachment to him because
it was brown hair, I remember.
Well, first, he was not the
ugliest,
unattractive gentleman
exactly.
out there. He's known to have been and he was charming too.
Yes.
I mean, if you actually watch a movie about him, if the actor doesn't have that little twinkle every once in a while, I mean, it's not going to be Ted Bundy for you. Anyway, and the other part that obviously fascinates us is the amount of abuse that is gone into making a human serial killer. I mean, it does not exist.
A style.
There does not exist a serial killer that did not suffer horrific abuse.
And it's usually severe, but it includes humiliation. And it's really severe, though. It's not just, smacked around. It's really devastating. And that's too bad, too.
Yes.
And again, we went into the field, and then we were fascinated because we felt like little sociopaths because when we were first born, never met our mother, and we were
our father for 30 days.
And we were put in these incubators, which in 1960 were extremely new, real glass. And back then, nurses didn't touch.
No, nurses did.
I'm sorry.
Parents were not allowed in. It wasn't until the mid or late 70s that nurses got together and said, look, you need this thing called human touch.
Mm-hmm.
So
in order to make a human being.
So we went 30 days, separate incubators without mommy and daddy's touch. And then we go home, or each other. And then we go home, and Dr. Spock or somebody said, keep them in separate cribs, which is not done nowadays. And
at all.
At age 3, we were throwing rocks at moving cars. We were doing. We killed a few insects, and that's about. We were fascinated with fire, like most children, but those kinds of things dissipated after we got some nurturing. Thank goodness. Thank goodness.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, I wonder if there are any twin, like, criminals. I mean, I'm sure there are twin criminals, but to that level of becoming a serial killer, like, because if one is experiencing it, then the other is likely experiencing it, unless there's a favorite situation, which I guess feeds into the other one. But I haven't heard of any. I don't know of any.
I don't think so. But we'd probably be two twins, not just us. I don't mean us. Any twin, they'd be really good at it because you have two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's not.
Two heads are better than one, you know, and a lot of times with twins, I mean, just for the mere sharing of DNA, I think that, you know, it's not psychic so much as it's this built-in intuition that, you know, she's going left, I'll go right, etc.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Yes. Yeah. That's interesting. We are not, to be clear, we are not condoning testing out a twin serial killer situation.
At all.
No. So we have a couple of questions in the chat right now. Let me go ahead and pull those up. The first one is from Bite Mark. She asks, what are your favorite poems?
You know, I have, so Jane, the older twin, a lot of anxiety that was silenced by this massive depression, right? So I kind of was all alone-ish, zoning out on my own. So, and with, of course, a self-hatred, all of that stuff. So one of my favorite boring but most beautiful poems is by Rumi, the Persian poet from 1000 something. And one of the reasons I love Rumi, though, I've only read a little, is I was told that when he died, people from many different religions attended his. I'm not even sure what his religion was, but, you know, and all I think is hopeful that in our world living now that, you know, somebody like a Republican could pass away and a Democrat could go to the funeral. And I know I'm being facetious, but, you know. But anyway, Rumi has one about what was said to the rose to make her bloom was also said to me. And I think about that every time I see a rose at Trader Joe's, usually on my way in, you know, that I too can be considered special.
Oh, that's nice.
Thank you.
I was just dark. So, you know, I have no favorites now, but what I was going to put in my yearbook, my parents told me I couldn't, so I don't even know what's in my yearbook. But what I wanted was a Neil Young part of a song or poem of his. And this is how bad it was. I said, this is what I wanted under my picture. It doesn't mean that much to me to mean that much to you. And I remember that all the time.
Okay. So that is from, let's see.
And I'm working on it. A Neil Young
That is from
song.
Old Man.
Yeah.
The Neil Young song, Old Man.
Yeah.
And you know what Joan is unaware of
What's
is
that?
we cut our pictures out. No, I mean, she's aware of this out of our yearbook because we both didn't like what we looked like. But before she cut hers out, I noticed that that quote is in there. So she does have that. Yes, Joan.
Oh, that is my high school.
That is her high school.
Oh, no wonder why no one.
Everybody treads lightly around Joan.
Oh, I.
Yeah, I'm teasing.
So I thought Mommy and Daddy told me I couldn't put it in.
No, it's there.
Oh well, thank you. It's
That's
there.
awesome.
Very negative. Don't go there. I should have been reading Rumi.
Listen, everybody likes what they like. It's okay to like songs that are, you know, a little off the beaten path. So our next question comes from Growling Octopus, and they said, did you know that therapy is a very slight anagram of they rap for most of 2022? I thought therapy was about gender non-binary hip hop artists. Okay.
Oh, wait, on Twitter for a little while, people actually thought we were rappers.
Yes.
The
Oh.
Rappy Twins instead of Therapy
Yes,
Twins.
they thought we were the rappy.
Yeah, the Rappy Twins. Yeah, and you know, I can't find this person. He wrote this rap song and it was called Ghost, I think, and it had some smoke and he had some gold teeth because I met him, but he didn't have the gold teeth in when I met him. So I said, "Oh, who's that?" And he was like, "Are you kidding me?" And he put the gold teeth back in, and he did look like that. And it was just the teeth I was looking at, but he didn't know at the time that my trauma, that I couldn't look at anybody's full face. I only looked at the teeth. So I would have been either an excellent dentist or a forensic dentist.
I think Joan would be the forensic artist because Joan is an artist.
Yeah.
She's a comedian, an artist, a scholar. She's many things. But she would be wonderful drawing the sketch, especially of the perpetrator's mouth, because she's so focused on mouths herself.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, quick PSA. I think I've said it on stream before, but it might not have made it all the way to YouTube. If you mostly get your dental work done in Mexico, make sure to have at least one x-ray set on in the US where they track it, because my grandfather's remains may have been found, but they couldn't use DNA, or they couldn't use dental. They're having to use DNA, which takes months and months and months. So because he got everything done in Mexico, it's cheaper. so get an x-ray in the US. If you want to go get everything else done in Mexico because it's cheaper, I get it. But get at least one x-ray done in the US so they have your dental records, please, as an adult.
Brilliant. Wonderful tidbit.
Yes. So that's my quick, completely not related PSA, except that you mentioned forensic dentist. So that's it. So mental health workers experience mental illness at the same rate as everyone else in other fields of work, no matter what it is. Mostly they're told now, at least, not to talk about their struggles and to kind of avoid that stigma. Do you think it's beneficial? We talked about this a little bit, but do you think that it's beneficial for a therapist to talk either with their clients or just publicly in general about their own mental illnesses?
Well, I'll just say, this is Joan, the younger twin. I saw Vivek Murthy. Is he the Surgeon General? He was for Obama, and then he wasn't, and now I think he's for Biden. I do. And I was born with a brain tumor, so there is a slight chance that it wasn't Vivek Murthy, but it is somebody of importance.
Yes.
In politics, it was some sort of live thing, and no one else saw it. And what he was saying was a distant family member saying uncle killed themselves, and he was so upset and said, "It is fine and wonderful when you are an actor, an actress, a sports figure, a billionaire. You come out with your mental illness and everybody's like, oh, isn't that wonderful? And you have this amazing trampoline of millions of dollars to fall upon. But the average person is extremely embarrassed about that." And he said, it was as if he was talking to me. And he said, unless the mental health professionals come out with theirs, we are never going to tackle this stigma. And I thought, well, there it is. He's correct.
I love that.
None of our peers were coming out. So that was, I think,
the creator, Marsha Lenehan, PhD, the creator of dialectical behavioral therapy, she came out with her own mental illness because she was also diagnosed with many psych diagnoses, including borderline personality disorder. And she created dialectical behavioral therapy pretty much to help herself and other people like her. And I really thought when that article came out, that I saw it in the, I saw her speak, I saw the article in the New York Times, and I thought, wow, isn't this wonderful? Things are going to change. And they didn't. And so Joan and I are kind of like rebels. And, you don't tell your patient, oh my God, Adam's father didn't pay child support and now I can't pay my rent and can I borrow $50? You're not doing that.
But
you just have your own therapist or best friend. But what you do is come out and say, you know what, I took that medicine too, and I tried that technique and that worked, but this didn't. And I had to talk about that with someone too. There's nothing wrong with saying things like that.
And we were told I was at the university. So I ran a group. It was,
in our opinions,
it was a group of, it was a women's group. and I don't know what the statistic is because no women report rape, but
Right.
almost everyone had been either assaulted or raped, and nobody was admitting anything. And finally, I needed a grade actually. So I thought, I need this group to start talking. So I said, when I was, how old was I?
Who cares?
25, I was raped. Oh my God, every single person. One woman came forward and said she was raped and now has HIV. I mean, everybody came out. And we all helped each other. The instructor gave me an A+ for the group and said, and by the way, in real practice, don't ever admit that. It's like, well, that is how it started.
Right.
Wow. So there.
Joan said I did everything first, and I became a nurse, and then I became a therapist. And when I first started, and Joan wasn't there, I was working for a physician and on an outpatient setting, and I wore professional clothing, and the patients knew exactly 2 things about me for safety reasons, and I had all these boundaries, and I was well liked. I thought and well respected. And then I went into business with my identical twin sister and a third person, and we dressed down and we shared a little bit more because by then we were seasoned. Mm-hmm. The patients that had followed me from dress up boundary to a little bit more,
Goodwill Hunting.
Yeah. They couldn't be happier. I mean, they were thrilled. The compliments started getting ad nauseum. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. I was like, okay, I'm real too. And it was wonderful to see people getting better faster and leaving me actually more frequently. So It was wonderful. Yeah. Wonderful.
It's really interesting because that reflects my own experience at my job. So I went through postpartum depression. I've had major depressive disorder. I've dealt with anxiety. I've had a lot of different things, including suicidal thoughts and ideations. And so when I started talking about it at work, it was like so many people around me were just like, oh, I'm actually on medication for that right now. Have you tried such and such medication? I'm like, well, no, I'm on this other thing, but thanks. But they had never once mentioned it before then. And it's like, now that I've done that, I have on my own team, I have people who are like, hey, I'm having a really high anxiety day. I'm just going to take it easy. And everyone's so much more open, and it's so much easier to work with people when you know what they're going through. And I feel like it's the same in so many different professions. If people would just talk about it a little bit, don't blame everything on it, but just be a little more open, Yeah. So, but I love that.
We're all afraid to be open sometimes because we're afraid to be judged. And, Joan, who knows better than a therapist that, human beings can't help themselves but judge. There's a reason therapists are constantly talking to their own colleagues or their own supervisors to, talk out, do I like this person too much? Do I hate this person too much? Should I just stop seeing this person, etc.? What do I do with this? And, it's just, I don't even know where I was going with the point, but there's such secrecy. I'm so tired of the secrecy. It's not working. I mean, we're in a huge crisis.
Because the secrecy leads to non-validation. How you're keeping your mental illness or mental health that has, gone a little awry there. How are you, if you're keeping that a secret, you're not getting validated. Mm-hmm. You aren't getting that, wow, that must have been difficult or something. You don't have to talk about it ad nauseum, because when you do, you actually stay in it. When women talk about their symptoms of being assaulted and they continue to talk about the details, it comes back. That doesn't define you. The people that get better realize that, I'm 30, 40, 50 years old. That happened to me in one day or 1 year. Why would I define myself for those years and not all of the other years? Mm-hmm. You don't have to be defined by that one illness or 2 or 3.
Yeah, that's beautifully said. If someone hasn't been to therapy, maybe all they know is from movies and that kind of thing. And a lot of people really view therapy as just all feelings and fluff. So why do y'all think that is? And can you give some examples of therapy that went beyond just talking on a couch?
Well, I think we think it's all feelings and fluff. Well, everything that's been portrayed, whether it's in comedy or in movies comedies and movies, or serious ones, there's a lot of serious talk,
Mm-hmm.
and
crying. And there's a place
and
for
there
that.
is such a place for that. But it doesn't have to be all that. One of the things I think about is one of the therapists I had, when I reflect back on 3 years, I remember doing a lot of complaining, don't get me wrong, knowing, like, stop it, Jane, this has to come to an end. But I remember he talked about movies a lot. He kept bringing up movies, and I think he wanted it to get a little more. He was trying to tell me, Jane, now is the time, we've got to get a little lighthearted. I heard you for the last 2.5 years. The goal would be more of back in, like Joan was talking, in the 80s, when the psychologist would take the person out on the dangerous bridge and help them change 3 lanes, and then everyone goes out for pizza. There's got to be some other activities, like we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
What was the question?
People think it's all fluffy.
I know another reason.
Yeah.
Scientifically, what do people always say? Human beings, what separates us from animals? We have emotions. But I want to say that in every other aspect of whatever, in psychiatry, when people are making fun of you, they're making fun of what? The exact thing that they want us to separate ourselves from the animal kingdom. And you know what? You should separate us, because with emotions, we know how to be amazingly cruel to each other. In the animal kingdom, they don't know what that is. The only time they're cruel is when they're hungry and they have to eat. They're doing what they're supposed to do. So you know what? Keep separating those emotions, because what you're doing is you're calling all of us the sociopaths. You really are. We are amazingly cruel to each other. And we don't have to be. We could be a community and say, hey, that was really hard. Let me help you. Now I feel so bad for the young people. They say, Joni, your master's degree is my bachelor's degree. And, they're really anxious about it. And it's really too bad. It really is.
Well, we're living in a society where any difference is just outcasted. I mean, thank God for LGBTQ, and other, autism spectrum. Oh, no, it's neurodiverse, excuse me. Thank God for all of this that's helping people like all of us misfits belong again, because there is such a chronic, we feel exposed. I suffered, Mama, from everything you said, from postpartum depression to major depression, et cetera.
With suicide.
And let's add in a little domestic violence in there and stuff like that. Born with the glass half empty. And one of the reasons I keep talking about it and saying it is because I'm also, I know I'm pretty now, but I was much prettier and very smart and well accomplished, and the mother of a beautiful son, and my ex-husband is wonderful and I get along with him, and all these wonderful things that I'm also. And I'm not just someone that suffered from postpartum depression or major depression, I think of William Styron. I don't know if you know this, but he suffered from major depression, and he was an author of Darkness Visible, but he wrote Sophie's Choice. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you've ever, Sophie's Choice, a brilliant man who suffered from mental illness.
Yeah.
I think that, I don't know the statistics on this, but I feel like a lot of people who are very good creatively have an underlying mental illness, either treated or not treated. But I think that their experiences maybe feed that a little bit. I don't know statistics. That's just me talking out of my ass. But, that's how it feels to me. Or maybe they're the
I
ones that
think
get
most
more
of us-
attention. Who knows?
Exactly. Most of us do have mental illness, and I think some of the extremes, if you look back in history, people that have done amazing things, their mental illness was found out. They were exposed because they became public figures. So a lot of wonderful people.
That's fair also. Just Average Jay says, I feel like I came in at an interesting time. My stroke 3 years ago has absolutely defined me. I was 39. I am also not a fan of virtual therapy, and in-person is not available for me anymore. So it's been a rough few years, and I'm having a hell of a time pulling myself out. I think that something physical like a stroke, especially if it impacts you moving forward, can define some things about your life. But I mean, I'll let you guys kind of address that too.
You're not going to address that, are you? So wait, the question is she doesn't have a therapy in person available, and she has had a stroke, and her question is what?
It just sounds like sometimes
me?
I think it's a he, but yes,
it's a he.
So he just said, it kind of is defining his life. And if you had anything to say,
yeah,
to speak on that.
absolutely. I mean, Jane probably has more to say because she has suffered Bell's palsy and went for a very long time with a patch on her eye and has residual and has spoken about that. But what I want to say about when something happens to you physically, because I fell and broke my foot in half, and now I have nerve damage as well.
Ouch.
When things and and have chronic pain, when things happen to us physically, it is a time that you can sit back. Now, the universe has given you time to sit and reflect. There are things to get better with a stroke. There's this vitamin that we used to prescribe in psychiatry, and some of it actually helped prevent a stroke. And I think that a lot of times we are ignorant as Americans, and you need a PhD to eat and figure out your health and preventative medicine. But it was folic acid, and most human beings are unable to change that compound 5 times. 5. So it was prescribed
to cross the blood-brain barrier to get up into the head.
So it was given as a vitamin for depression as an add-on. And what we noticed is when we were doing labs and stuff, people were getting better, and it does help prevent strokes, but and miscarriages, but no one will tell us any of that. Anyway, it's a perfect time that if you want to veer off to the wolf you want to feed and go positive, because I was negative for most of my life, and horrific things, I would say that reflect upon, thank the universe for every experience, including our negative ones. That was very hard for me. And then say to yourself out loud, the door to my heart opens inward. Somebody tricked me. They told me to say that. I thought that meant I love you, and it doesn't. And I want that person who called in to get our email and ask us later, because I don't want to tell you what it means right away, because then people won't say it. But Jane actually told me that, and she helped me heal. She really helped me.
No, what I did was tricked her.
Yeah, she tricked me.
Her. But what I'd like to add to all of what Joan said, because all of that is wonderful and important, but if you don't balance all of that serious, it all sounds serious. Sorry, that sounds like everything I'm working on. If you don't, so please do something fun. You deserve it. If you're doing 50% of hard work, whether it's physically trying to work that side of your body that might be paralyzed and get better, and doctor's appointments and stuff, please put exactly that amount of time and maybe even more into something joyful.
And laughing. Sorry, I forgot the laughter.
Put on a comedy, listen to different kinds of music, and get up, well, you probably can't get up and dance. Maybe you can, and just start singing as loudly as you can. And when I had Bell's palsy, I was young, and the neurologist made a slur that today I probably would have gotten some money. I don't love the idea of suing, but the comments that came out of his mouth were just, I'm not going back there. Okay. So anyway, I ended up with a lot of residual paralysis in my mouth, and I would go. My ex-husband and we would go for breakfast. He would take me out for breakfast and things to cheer me up, and I'd sip my coffee, and it would all spill all over. I learned not to wear white, and I spent so many years hiding my face, and you know what happens is, you start aging every single day, and you look back, and when you were 30 years old, you were gorgeous, and now you're 62, and you're still gorgeous, but start smiling and showing yourself. And
Jane always thought she was crooked. She said, Joan, I can't smile. And I said, oh my God, I hope this is okay. I spent time in France. I said, you just look a little French, because the accent makes you go slightly to one side or the other. And everybody said to me, you two are so identical, I can't tell you apart. So I was so sick of her telling me how crooked she was. I was born. I was born.
She was already born with a bit of a lazy eye. One eye closes up just like Joan. The universe wanted us identical, I think.
Somebody said that, and they said, do you realize your left eye closes more than your right? And it's like, did you want a second date? Like, get out. Because it's not.
Okay, oh, man, that takes a lot of paying attention to notice that one eye is closing more than the other. Good grief. Maybe they're just trying to stare soulfully into your eyes. I love that Jill talked about laughter as medicine also. I think that that's really important, and having fun. And Jay said he was just putting it out there, and he has full mobility. The issues are mostly mental health and fatigue right now. So just kind of putting it out there. And that's one of those things that if you put it out there, someone can validate you, and then we can talk about other people's experience and anything like that. So I appreciate you, Jay, for being open here. That's very much welcome. In your experience as therapists, what is one of the hardest truths that people resist or avoid accepting?
Well, I'm going to talk about myself. The hardest truth that I had to accept was basically all of my, anxiety. There are some rational reasons to be anxious. I'm not saying all anxiety is irrational, but my truth, the hardest pill to swallow, was that it was me. It was me causing it. I complained, this person is mean. This person cuts me off. I can't speak. They're putting me down. I am a victim. Oh my God. And you know what? It was really me with my mindset. So all the plastic surgery that I had, and I did have therapy as well, and medication and yoga and acupuncture. I mean, my goodness, I can go on. Chiropractic, hypnosis, psychic mediums, anything. If you told me an entomologist would talk to me about the bugs I killed, wow, I just loved it. I was going into forensic science so that I could be closer to criminals and serial killers. I was a forensic investigator. Could I just be there?
See, you went to Ted Bundy.
And what I want to say is, if you could just go to sleep, but before you go to sleep, press the play button for all these positive things that are available to you for free. They heal your mind and your body. And during the day, listen to laughter, because you can't feel emotional or physical pain simultaneously.
Right.
With laughter. Do that, because I spent my whole life without doing that. I didn't know. They should teach that in schools. I mean, hello, darkness, my old friend. I was dark. I mean, we wore dark clothing.
We still do.
But our minds are positive.
The hardest thing for me to swallow, because I had a lot of therapy and I actively am working. The hardest thing for me to swallow is I actually have to do forgiveness work. And I thought I did. You always think, I thought I had done it. But I saw that I was not being kind, compassionate, tolerant of people closest to me. And my girlfriend posted something on Facebook. It was a quote, and I loved it. And then I posted it. I don't know if I posted it on my personal or therapy twins, but people thought it was a little harsh, right? And I'm like, well, hey, it's about me.
What was it?
And it said something like, if you don't heal yourself or something like that, you're going to bleed all over people that did not cut you. And that was right in my face.
Oh, I did
that second line. Like, I think I bled on a lot of people too. And, you know, you got to be careful. It is definitely proven that positive thinking, cognitive behavioral therapy, changing the way you look at things definitely works. And if you are negative all day long, which I was, it didn't really compute for me. It's funny, I said compute until I started learning more about computers and programming, that I was literally programming my brain to be just negative. I noticed I was only remembering negative things that happened to me, and I started forgetting the positive. So I'm currently nurturing a lot of my positive memories because both of our parents have passed, et cetera, a lot of pets, et cetera.
So I think forgiveness is the thing. And if you're an atheist like I was, you know, so how do you forgive when you don't even believe in any of it? Like, why would you forgive somebody when you think that whole God thing and he or she forgives everybody, whatever? So it's really
humans can forgive us.
Yeah, I didn't catch on to that. So anyway, I feel that being the negative and that with the forgiveness, I'll tell Jane tricked me to saying the door to my heart opens inward. I thought that was working on loving myself. Stop having the plastic surgery and loving myself. And instead, if you looked it up with this guru we were into, because of course I didn't look it up, I could have read that, but I didn't read. Jane would read and tell me about it, which really helped me. But yeah, so it was to forgive everyone.
Yes.
Listen to this one. I would never have said that. To forgive everyone for all perceived wrongs. And also to forgive yourself. But it was perceived. And I'm thinking, what are you talking about? And then I go to school for forensic science. And you have to separate human beings because we are so fragile with each other and ourselves. We're so fragile that we will just say, oh, yeah, I saw what she saw, and deny what our own eyes saw. Plus, if you really go into philosophy and all of that, what you're seeing is all an illusion anyway. It's bizarre. So the more you educate yourself, oh my God, the dumber you get. You don't know what's going on anymore.
The more you know, the more you realize you don't know. Actually, it's true.
Yeah. But yeah, you really do have to figure that out. Because, you know, you say it to one person, goes around in the circle, your children with that game, right? And by the time it got back to the other person, it was totally different.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know what that meant, but yeah, we're all confused, I think is what that meant.
So let's be a little nice.
Forgive us. We don't know what we're doing. Thank you.
Yes. Be a little nicer to each other.
Yeah.
It's funny because that's the second time I've heard that that phrase about the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. The first time was from my 9-year-old in the car this afternoon because we were talking about, we have lots of conversations about God and religion versus science. And he, oh man, I wish I could remember. I would get him out of his bed, but then he'll just never go to sleep. So, but I wish I could remember what exactly he was talking about because we were talking about, you know, everything. He's like, somebody said that God created Adam and Eve, but that would mean, and I'm like, okay, hold on. Well, according to their beliefs, that may be what they believe. But according to science, if you want to lean so hard on science, explain to me where Earth started. Explain to me, oh, well, it started from a cold rock. Where did that cold rock come from? And so we talked about like, okay, everything, you can keep asking, where did that come from? And you get to a point where there's not an answer scientifically yet. And so he said, it's just like that. If the more you realize, or the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know everything. And it's like, yes. I'm glad I don't understand that. I'm way older than you, and I don't understand that sometimes. I want to go back to one thing that you said, and Bitemark commented on this in the chat too. And so you said something about when you're the laughter and not being able to feel emotional and physical pain at the same time. Can you explain what that means? I've never heard that before.
Yeah, I know. I didn't either. I was, I broke my foot in half and they had to, I was in another state.
Speaking of French, it was a Lisfranc fracture.
Thank you. And so I had to fly from the West Coast to the East Coast to get operated on. So I was too swollen. They couldn't operate. So they had to re-break my foot. And then, I know. So it was like, this is just awesome with no health insurance. I am loving this scenario. So I had a wonderful surgeon. And
your foot fingernail?
Yeah. So the surgeon, what happened was our parents died. I ended up being in a wheelchair. And somehow I hit my toe next to a moving car. And my toenail was like the Leaning Tower of Pisa. So I called the surgeon. He said, come in. He said, pull it out yourself. I was like, yeah, right. Are you kidding me? He said, oh, go to bed with a heavy blanket. It'll come out. No. So I go to his office, and he did not tell me that he was going to do this. So he just spoke about different little things. And I was like, well, you're going to give me no more ouchies, some medicine? What? He says, I'm going to tell you a joke. So he tells me a joke. And when I burst out laughing, he had a pliers. He yanked the toenail out. And I went, are you fucking kidding me? But I realized he was like, but Joan, you wouldn't have felt the pain while I was doing that. And I was like, that point was that. But anyway, he was correct. So then we started doing research on laughter. And come to find out, we grew up in a home that was always laughing. But come to find out, you can't feel either.
Put simply, when you're laughing with that deep belly, visceral laugh, all the hormones that are the fireworks in your brain are the feel good. And what do we know that are feel goods? One of the feel goods are the opiates. So think about it. Feel no pain. So laugh, people, laugh.
One of the things when I was really down and I had suicidal thoughts, and our mother went to a psychic, which is funny, and she said, your twins are, really dark. And my mother was like, yeah, I know. And she said, one of them could kill themselves. And she went right away. I know Jane suffers from depression, and she had postpartum depression, and it was also worried. And the psychic was like, the other one is lethal.
Yeah.
And little known to my mother and my whole community is not only did I have a plan, but in psychiatry, you don't care really about a plan. Who cares about the plan? Do you have access to that plan? Like somebody might say, well, I want to drink kerosene and whatever, and they don't have access to it, or a gun. I had access, and I knew how to do it because the guy, my coworker, killed himself. He tried once, failed. That was my thought, too. I was going to go with that route. Then he successfully did it. Notice how we say it in psychiatry. He successfully did it as if that's an accomplishment. Mm-hmm. And then I knew how he did it with insulin and the meds, and I had access. So I'm glad, actually, that my mother went to that psychic, and she said, Joan, what is wrong with you? And she said, can I help? Hello. And, suicidal thoughts can be very black and white. And when you have no support because you've pushed everybody away and you're in that dark wherever, you get this light where you think, you know what? The world is better without me. I'm causing pain. So I'm going to go. And, the last statistic I heard was 22 veterans kill themselves a day. And something's going on that we're not doing for people because too many people are killing themselves.
And how many wars might you need to have and to have the soldiers come back and not do well to realize that you might choose to do something differently? And I just said that, and I, first of all, though, want to say that I know that the VA has come an awful long way, and I'd like to say thank God and wonderful things about them. But we as communities have to come a lot further.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's still a lot of improvement that the VA can do. Still, they've come a long way. There's still a long way to go. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And health insurance. Yes.
Yeah. Oh my God. Oh, I have been dealing with. So in my Discord, we have
our health insurance is like a salesperson on TV. It's all sales. It's like
Wow.
It really is.
Sorry. Thank you.
We have a channel in our Discord that's called Rants and Vents, and the last 3 have been about various health insurance and healthcare issues. It's like I was on the phone for over an hour today with my prescriber arguing about a medication. Still didn't get an answer. They called the doctor. The doctor said I've been on hold for an hour and a half. So it's like, Okay.
Yep.
It would be routine that if I had to call an insurance company because I couldn't seem to get paid, it was routine when I would be on about 45 minutes, and this would be my question. Excuse me, are you getting paid? Are you at work? Because I would be asked, because I'm not getting paid, and I'm going to stay on the phone with you for an hour to beg for money for services already rendered. It's terrible.
Yeah.
It's really terrible.
It really is. It's really a big bummer. Probably one of the biggest bummers. But there are other things also. So just one more comment on the laughter, because Bite is saying that, she has an involuntary response to a big unexpected pain, but you mentioned the belly laughter is really what you're after, that laughter from something that really kind of gets you going. So not just like a little giggle, but a real good laugh.
Yes. And there's something called, I'm going to say it wrong. It's either laughter yoga or yoga laughter. And I don't know much about it except that they use all the muscles for appropriate laughter for healing purposes. So that would be something to check out.
There's also a healing your heart or trauma through yoga, which could be as good, if not better, than a medication. Because if you're not healing your heart, Steve Harvey said it, if you're still talking about the past, and don't get me wrong, with untreated PTSD, which I've had, for certain parts of your brain, there's too much blood flow or not enough, and you're going to start crying. It's embarrassing over little things. But if you heal your heart, like Steve Harvey said, you're going to talk about your past. You're not crying anymore, and you're not holding that anger and resentment. People say you can't forgive. Yeah, forgiveness is not that the person who attempted to rape me, I'm not saying that was okay. What I'm saying is I'm not going to be a victim of that mindset anymore. I am something other than that. You made a terrible mistake. And, a therapist is going to hear you, hopefully, once in all the years of therapy. One time in all those years, a man said to me what he did in college and in a group and gang raped a girl that was almost unconscious. And only one admitted it to me. And I know it goes on all the time because all the females told me it did. And all the males that woke up in college hallways that now have herpes. Oh, I do want to say herpes is not forever. Please just boost your immune system. Other countries, women and men from other countries used to laugh in my face. You Americans think herpes is forever. And I was like, what? So it's not. It's a virus. No virus has to be forever. But yeah, all the men and women and children that have been raped, validate and do all of these things. Positive thoughts. Listen to it on TV. Get rid of the news. Everything. Jasmine oil. I put it under my nose all the time.
I thought she was going to say play some jazz, and I'm like, yeah, play some jazz.
And music. Everything boosts your Google. Search engine it, not Google. Search engine it. All these things, and it's a lot less money than therapy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that leads kind of into my next question, because related to your book, you focus on understanding and healing your trauma. Can't we just forget it?
The reason we can't is because I was assaulted. I was a fucknut.
Well, wait, it's not just because you were assaulted. Okay. I don't even know some of the things that may have happened to me. I mean, people, your body and your mind, all your organs have experienced the trauma, whatever that may be. And that is why, we might have thought we forgot it, but we didn't really.
And muscles didn't forget.
And what it's doing is it's kind of eating away at you. And the more you confront all those demons, all that negative in you. And, speaking of favorite poems, the one I really wanted to say was my favorite is by Leonard Cohen. And it's where there's a crack in everyone, and that's how the light gets in. And I used to think of it as, I could love myself, right? I have these things like a little bit of facial deformity and all these other things, but, I'm lovable. But I'm taking it so much differently today as the more I confronted all the dark shadows, whatever you want to call it, the subconscious things in my past. And you might be right the first time you think you've nailed it, but search some more. I've gotten so much more, and that's what I think of when with the crack. That light can keep coming in as long as you acknowledge that, yes, I was jealous of Joan. Yes, I hated Jim. And I literally hated and didn't think I could get love back there, but I did, because the opposite of love is not hate, etc. But anyway, that's what I love about the light can get in, is every day you can learn something new about yourself and just be a little bit of a kinder person.
Yeah. And don't forget to say thank you.
Why not?
People with trauma, you know what they say all day? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. And we keep our heads down. Put your head back up and say thank you. Even if somebody was a dick, well done. I don't know. The English do that all the time. They try to get each other with these digs, and they say well done. That was
nurses know, but Joan, medical nurses know very well. But you weren't a medical nurse.
I was never.
You kill the ornery patient. You kill them with kindness.
Right.
Thank you.
Right. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Try it on yourself once in a while. Yeah. Self-healing.
Because you're resilient a little bit. I know children aren't that resilient because we're fucked later. But yes, we're resilient to a point, and you could focus on your strengths rather than your weaknesses. We all have weaknesses.
Yeah. That was one of the big things that I had to start doing in my career. So I work for an architecture engineering firm. I'm a proposal manager. And one of the things that I would find myself doing was saying like, oh, sorry, I'm late to this meeting. My other meeting ran long or whatever. And it took a really conscious effort to say, hey, thanks for being patient, instead of sorry, I'm late. Hey, thanks for being patient.
Yes. Yeah.
But it's amazing how much it's a more positive response from the other party. And I would imagine, I haven't tried it with myself, it's a really good idea, but I would imagine with yourself, you'll get a more positive response as well. So I should probably start trying that with myself.
And you see how you just said, like, all we really did was sort of change our behaviors ever so slightly. And you see, you get the better results, like, especially with the patient. Like, if you couldn't give an injection and then you killed that person with respect and kindness, now they're saying, can I help you? It's wonderful. And if you try that with yourself or your family on the holidays, how about that? Try being a little kinder and not telling everybody how wrong they are or how you didn't validate me and I'm this and you're that. I mean,
and how stupid you are. And don't say what a dumb thing. I can't believe I did, or how ugly I am. All those things too. They add up. I meant to say before you go to bed, I meant to say the unconscious, subconscious, what is it?
The
subconscious brain soaks up information. So if you go to bed to scary movies, you're going to wake up very frightened. So if you go to bed and you just press some beautiful meditation music or the I am affirmations, if you could tolerate a voice. I mean, I need waves or something, but subliminal. Yeah. But it actually, people, if you do that for 30 days, people think you're on a new medication. I did it. It's on medications. And, if people say, did you take your meds? Are you kidding me? That is rude. Did you fucking wash today? Did you, like you stink? Did you, I don't know. Why would people say that to you? Did you put your socks on the right way? I don't know if there's a correct way to put your socks on, but I just thought I'd say that. Anyway, it's just rude. Be kinder to each other is what I'm saying.
I like that. So that's kind of why it's important to confront your trauma. Are there steps? You'll talk about the trauma tiger in your book. How do you confront your trauma? And are there steps that are common no matter the trauma or the stripes of your trauma tiger? Are there steps that are common to everyone to confront that trauma and start to heal from it?
Well, you have to tell somebody. I mean, there are people who are so spiritual or religious that can speak to their higher power, and that's good enough as well. I mean, that's actually probably the best. But you have to tell someone because you have to be validated. And don't get me wrong, I've met many, many, many spiritual / religious people, myself included, when I have been on that journey where you do feel validated with your higher power. So I think that you got to tell somebody, but nowadays, this community we have, it doesn't feel safe sometimes to tell somebody, because A, they're going to use it against you, or B, they're going to look at you like you're flawed or judge you. And it didn't seem like it was always like that when we were growing up, where in at least our neighborhood. Joan?
Because not everyone has to suffer from this traumatic PTSD. Because,
Right.
If you have a neighborhood and you have peers and mentors and, neighbors that, you're having dinner, you're camping, you're going out, you're doing whatever normal things are, you're doing it now and you feel safe. The only people that had the difficult time in that, where the place we worked, you had to fail 3 inpatient hospitalizations just to get in there. That abuse was so severe that you were surprised they weren't serial killers. Instead, some people go out and work it out on others. They did it, you hate yourself. Depression sometimes is anger turned inward. So what was the point of this? So everyone has to get a little bit of validation, just that little bit of touch. And then, use the internet. There are so many things that are out there that you can just have at your fingertips to do, have your other person. We did it together. We did it in our practice, actually. We used to tell each other, remind us if somebody's negative. So even Jane's clients versus mine would pass each other in the waiting rooms, and they would knew each other, and they'd remind each other, Alice, what you meant to say was blank, or, Carl, what you meant to say was that, because we're all so negative. And it was wonderful. People started laughing. It was more of a community. They were requesting groups just so they could be together, because it's great to be vomiting on a therapist. What really is the agent of change is when your peers tell you. That group is the agent of change. It really is wonderful.
One of the other universal things, though, besides everybody needs to be validated and everybody, to be healthy, you'd have to be doing all those positive things and working on that. But one of the things that I know that I found out kind of later in my life with a medication that I got a side effect where I was noticing the tenseness of my muscles. And then I was like, well, then Joan read this famous book, The Body Keeps the Score.
Half of it.
And Joan read the
interesting half.
The treatment, she did not read the treatment,
which was
part.
harder than the treatment I like to do, and it's worked for me. It's okay.
But for me, because I worked on my mind, my emotional state so much, and I'm really getting a lot better with that, right? I forgot about the tenseness neck down, and so now I do a little bit of yoga, and when I say yoga, that's a strong word.
Like our mother did chair yoga.
I do some cute little stretches that I learned when I took yoga in college when I was 18 years old. But they're wonderful to force you to breathe. It's funny. A couple of little yoga poses, you can't help but breathe better. And check out trauma yoga.
Yeah.
That's just really helping the body.
Yes.
That also, according to Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, that the body keeps the score, because the body remembers, even if you blocked it out. Another reason you should deal with it.
And another reason to get treatment, because what I was doing was I was assuming every single human being. What I did was I looked you up and down, thought in my head, could you have my back in Vietnam? Nope. I had no use for you. I was in a trauma mode. And only those people, like my father was in the military, I loved him. I always hung out with him, loved him. But for me, everyone else was just not, it was awful. And I treated people like they weren't good in the Army. They mock people when you're in the Army. They call people ladies when they're men. I did a lot of emasculinating. Yeah. If you weren't gonna. So yeah, you need help. You deserve it. You don't need it. You deserve help.
Mm-hmm. I like that. Your website also describes you as former therapist turned psychiatric entertainers. What is a psychiatric entertainer to you?
Well, I'm just going to go with me. I went right into psychiatry, never did medicine. And what I did was I went into private practice as soon as I could. And I hired my niece. And what happened was she would be knocking on the door. And I was like, what's up? And she said, what is the laughing? And she couldn't tolerate, there was crying too, because I used to joke with people that if you don't cry in one of these sessions, I'll fucking kick you just to make you cry. Because you want them to, you got to say it that one time, let's get that shit over with, and then we can move towards the treatment moving forward. So I always thought of myself as a psychiatric entertainer. I always wanted to be a comedian. Comedy always helped me. But what was my other thing I did was when I was down and out, I used to watch films that somebody else was down and out, worse than me. And then it was like, after that movie, how grateful am I? That would be me. I'd be moving forward. Look at that poor person. Oh my God, that poor bass.
And I would watch the same movie. And back in those days, Joan had the better television. And my son, because we lived right upstairs, downstairs. And so I would put my son to bed, then I'd go and we'd leave the doors open and I'd be in Joan's apartment watching the movie. And then if I didn't like the movie, because I was
too depressing,
it didn't help me with gratefulness. I mean, I was very negative and I was the Earth's axis, I think, that I just was like, I know better than everyone, and that's that. But I would just get up. Joan would be gazing at the movie, and then all of a sudden she's like, I wonder where Jane went. I would get up and walk out because I think I just thought, no, don't like that. And fuck them. My life was harder than yours. I'd be like that.
The French had a way that, even incest, and it was like, wow. The movie was unbelievable. And, that wasn't, they widened the lens. That's what I want to say. Mm-hmm. They widened the lens.
Of the foreign films,
and where abuse came from and where trauma. And a lot of gurus say, go back and look at your parents through a compassionate lens. And most human beings can't. Like our clients, we'd laugh so hard. One person was trying to think of one good thing about her mother-in-law. Oh my God. I was saying, she's probably a good whatever. And she was like, nope. And she's a good this. I said, she makes a good cake. She was like, nope. And finally, I said, she makes a good bed. Military, you're thinking that quarter can pop up. She fell out of her chair. The mother-in-law made a good, tight bed. You got to find that one good thing, because every human being, including Ted Bundy, in them that is better than what that act was. He wasn't born saying, my God, I can't wait to cause havoc and murder and fear and all that over. No, they're born loving life. It is the
I wasn't. You can be born with the glass half empty, and it's a little harder to and with the exchange of DNA.
Yes, that's correct.
Depressed mommy, depressed baby.
Yes,
that's true too. I actually apologized to. I don't know if I'm supposed to. In my own self-created self-help program. After going through some old photos, and I saw how I was prettier in my 30s, in my 50s, right? I was very depressed looking. So I apologized to my son I was getting treatment, but I guess it wasn't the best treatment. I was actively seeking, but still very, very depressed because I would not even consider forgiveness at all. Interesting.
Yeah.
Which apparently is the hardest.
Which again, I'm the Earth's axis. I was going to be the only human on Earth that could be euthymic without having to do forgiveness work. I was also the only smoker of cigarettes that was not going to get addicted. Come on now. Our next book is called The Ego Has Landed, and it's not because we didn't have egos. Now, I can admit that now.
We're really trying to land that. The landing gear.
The landing gear. I need to put some weights on me. I'm not grounded enough.
Listen, it's good to have goals.
Yes.
The title of your book is, and I have to read it off the page because I don't have it memorized, but Under the Hood, How We Hotwired Our Brain, Calm the Fuck Down and Let That Shit Go. So I want to talk about that calm part. Was that easy for y'all to do as you worked on healing your own trauma, or did that come after the healing?
Well, see, I was medicated. We were medicated. I had benzodiazepines, like Ativan, Xanax, or Klonopin. I had that for years. And, then all of a sudden I didn't. And, alcohol and benzos are those two dangerous things. You can have a seizure coming off of that. And I wish people would tell people with alcohol about that, but they don't. And I detoxed myself because I was a detox nurse. I have a new profound respect for addiction. I almost couldn't even get the little dusting back. It was really bad. And then 3 months after that, you're not right. You're not sleeping. So, a lot of things didn't help. I have too much electricity in my body. An acupuncturist told me that. So I did the press play before I go to bed. Go ahead,
too much electricity in your body?
Yeah, there's something. Yeah. I was the only person he couldn't put to sleep. And what he said was each needle he put into my body, I heard like that. And I'm thinking, that kind of hurts. And he said, well, this isn't supposed to be happening. And he finally gave up on me.
On his behalf, because he's brilliant, he also did acupuncture on me, and there was no sizzling sounds because I don't have the electricity.
In nursing school, it was around 1982, I think, in nursing school, my anthropology teacher, this would never be done today. I'm surprised we weren't all molested. He blindfolded all of us, and he got on top of the big table. And what he did was he had another person go by, and he said, tell me when you feel this pin. And each person said they felt it when it touched their skin. And that's what I said. And then he unblindfolded us, and he said, Joan, you have too much electricity. You felt the pin before it hit your skin. So when people say, did you have ADD? What's going on? I got an unsatisfactory and self-control in a pre-grades, like before lettered grades, which would be like third, fourth. So third grade, maybe?
Elementary
school. And somebody asked me, what did you feel like? And I said, I felt like electricity looking for an outlet to plug myself in so I could stop moving, thinking and talking. I was never diagnosed with ADD, nothing. I never got help. After I was assaulted, I asked all kinds of the Yale University community. I needed a therapist or a group. I've been raped. I need help. There's no such group.
Well,
there's no such thing. Of course there is now, but it was in 1985, there wasn't. And it was my primary care doctor for the university. He was my primary care doctor, and he said, Joan, I'm interested in psychiatry. Please sign this paper, and I want all primary care students, the pre-med students, to come in and watch your interview. And they're going to ask questions and stuff about how would we know you were assaulted and what were the symptoms. And it was wonderful. And he helped. He helped me. So,
Joan, you probably got validated by the med students.
Yes, I did. Yeah. Not in psychiatry, though.
No.
No. In primary care.
No, the ones in psychiatry are probably so anxious they can't speak. I'm joking. That was me. That was as a nurse. I was very, very anxious. I was so anxious as a nurse's aide that I during lunchtime, I was in college, and in the summertime I worked at Gaylord Hospital on the spinal cord and traumatic brain injured unit. And I was so anxious because of the nurses. They weren't mean to me at all. I just couldn't bear to be around them. I didn't know what to say, that I hid in the laundry room during lunchtime. And another aide finally came in and said, Jane, I get what you're doing. And, here it is, validation. So she said, Jane, I get what you're doing, but they're all starting to think that you don't like them. You think you're better than them. Now, remember, I was the Earth's axis back then. So somewhere I was hating myself, but thinking I was the know-it-all. And for some reason, after she said that to me, I was able to, oh, no. They wanted to fire me. It was our mother stormed in with to the director of nursing and said, and our mom, talk about anxiety, she suffered from tremendous anxiety. So I was in awe of her speaking because I couldn't speak. So she came to the meeting with me and she told the director of nursing, how dare you squash a girl's dreams to be a nurse and she's suffering from anxiety. Who do you think you are? So what they did is they didn't fire me and they put me on the 4 to midnight shift the next summer. I got to work with the stroke and amputee patients, and I loved that. I loved both units. I loved both. But yeah, anxiety can get you, people, they misinterpret what you, they think you're, that you think you're holier than thou, and,
or they think you're a bitch,
and I did think I was a bit of a know-it-all, but I didn't always say it, and I did really like a lot of whatever. I was very hateful, so I'm not anymore, so I'm going to spend a lot of time laughing and being kind. Thank you.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate y'all letting me sidetrack. That electricity comment just got me.
Sorry.
I needed more. No, it's all good. So back to the calming part, and kind of the before or after working on your trauma. Was that easy for y'all? Was it hard? How was that?
It was really hard because, you start talking. I knew my rapist, and, it was a sexual assault. And it's hard because, this person, you didn't even hate him, and he does that, and then you have to get through it. So I was lucky because what he said to me one day it was like, I think in college or something, and he said, I wouldn't speak to him, but he said, passing me by, I hope what I did to you didn't ruin your life. And you know what he added to? Because it did mine. I actually hated him for years after that. I think I might have even gone to a wedding where he was there. And I realized later in life that I would, where I worked in psychiatry, I was always late as a nurse. I never read any charts, never had time for that. By the time I was done giving morning meds, I was in the med room with all the other nurses going, oh my God, that new admit, was raving about this guy. He was so wonderful, talking about things and how he wants to get better. And they were like, Joan, who are you talking about? And I said, I don't know, Brian. They were like, the pedophile? And I was like, what? So I found myself very drawn to people who, we had a lot of prisoners too, who did things. And I thought, how come I like all these people? Does that mean I'm like that? When you look at the body keeps the score, the reason I loved violent movies, a high-risk job, get into relationships with addicts so I could get in their face so they could hit me and then we'll have police involvement. You have to work this shit out. So instead of doing it that way, what I recommend is early on, when they say there's no group or whatever for yourself, put that tape on at night, heal your body and your heart and heal your mind. You're negative because what happened to you, how are you going to say, oh, I'm so glad that happened? I washed myself until my skin broke down, and there I am in a room with a doctor. Why is your vagina excoriated? I don't even want to discuss it today. That time, you deserve the help, you get validated, and then goodwill hunting you want. You want human beings to be with you in normal places, not complaining in a therapist's office for 50 years.
The hardest pill to swallow is that you actually have to do the work to get as better as whatever you want, whatever your goal is. Mine used to be just, can I be even mooded? And I got to say, I could be even mooded without doing full forgiveness work. But then, for me, it's a daily practice of just what I like to do is kind of before I go to bed, think about my whole day and did I really want to, focus on that, or good job, Jane. You didn't tell so-and-so what they did wrong. Like I messed up today. I told Joan she crossed the line on the road. I said it wasn't a dotted line or whatever it's called. Drive, and Joan, because she's a comedian, she says, "What's that, driver's ed 101?" Yes, it is, Joan, and I shouldn't have said it. You're right, because I don't follow it either. I just felt the need to tell you it was wrong.
How cute couples. We used to do a lot of couples, and when we would start doing the work,
so much fun.
So many couples would go like this. What's that, couples? Oh, that's so cute.
Because life is actually a lot simpler than we make it. And I'm famous for putting all these roadblocks in front of me. But, with a little bit of the self-help, and make sure you realize it, that we eat food and we drink water and we breathe air to do positive things for our human lives. If you don't nurture that brain and then the relaxation with a little bit of movement, because we're not exercisers.
I'll just say the lifesaver is the medical marijuana program for me.
Oh, yeah.
My endocannabinoid system. I didn't like serotonin. I was on a seizure med, and those we used to call mood stabilizers. There's no such thing. It was a seizure med, and they noticed you're better. And I had seizures as a kid, and I thought, oh, I'll take that over the sexual dysfunction and that weird serotonin. I didn't like it. But the medical marijuana program, it's amazing. If you want an ADD style, you get that. If you want the calming, get that. Euphoric, giggly, boom. Sleep, they have not, somebody needs to help us with sleep, because the doctor that found out that we were in the incubator for 30 days in 1960, this is what he did. Oh, 1960, the lights never were turned off. You never learned how to make melatonin. And it was like, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Now what do we do?
Now what do we do is right. It's not working.
But you see why it's so important as you get older, and now we're like over 50, so we're over half the life. And I did all that negative, and a lot of that negative was very, very, very important. But oh my goodness, laughter is so much more fun. And, there's a
Get
reason.
Your negative in and then laugh.
There's a reason they say laughter is the best medicine. If you Google, if you search engine the benefits of laughter, there's so many.
Immune system.
There's so many.
System. Facial muscles. It's like a facelift.
Anti-aging.
It's like a facelift.
Yes. Oh, and core, if you do that core yoga thing, that the laughter, I want to do it because I've had a baby. Thank you. The whole core business, you can strengthen that. It's wonderful. Wonderful.
I'm going to have to look into the laughing yoga, because I love to laugh, and I tell jokes constantly. Like, I'm always telling dad jokes to my kids, and the best response is either, "I'm not speaking to you anymore for the day, Mom," or rolling the eyes, or the very best is just turning around and walking away. So if my kids do that, I know I've succeeded. So I love laughing. I love that stuff. So I'm gonna have to look up the laughter yoga for sure. It sounds really interesting. Are there any heart healing self exercises? I mean, we've kind of talked about the nighttime and turning on either the affirmations or some positive sounds or something, but is there anything that you can do on your own that you think everyone should do more often?
I do. Self-care. Somebody taught us with this self-care to think of a teacup. And she asked,
just the British kind with the saucer.
Okay, a small
saucer.
And she said, I'm going to start pouring the tea. Tell me when your self-care is done, and when are you supposed to help others? And as it was getting full, people started raising their hand. She said, no. And then when it was completely full, everybody raised their hand. And she said, no. She overflowed it. If you don't take care of yourself physically and emotionally first, and some people will think that that's selfish, take care of yourself. A depressed person said, Joan, what everyone tells me to do is the hardest thing to do in my whole life. And I said, what's that? And he said, to get out of bed. So when I broke my foot and I was in a wheelchair, because I was very off balance and couldn't use crutches for some reason. That was weird.
They're not right.
Couldn't do it.
They're a terrible invention.
I learned with these certain wet ones, and this little bath salt and orange oil. Orange oil, you put that, you can wash your whole body. And trips, I did travel to Europe when I was younger, and all women were just wet wanting it. They weren't showering. So I knew about it already. And I told him that if you can't get out of bed, then you don't have to get out of bed those first few days. Keep wet ones next to you. You've showered because you did your whole body. Baby steps are steps. Mm-hmm. They are still steps, and you can get yourself better even when you think it's so arduous, and ask for help.
I think, I had to, I had a little heart issue medically. And so I thought to myself,
that helps to heal your heart.
How much longer am I going to be hateful? And because now it's affecting my body. And I'd like to stick around, Mm-hmm. So there are so I read that Rumi, the line about what was said to the rose to make, and I just say, I think I'm quoting it slightly differently than Rumi wrote it, because I put her in there and I put it in for me. I say that every morning. I say that every night. Uh-huh. I have said other things in the past. I may change that in the future. Right now, I am working on the Leonard Cohen, the crack in everyone. That's how the light gets in. And I encourage people to find whether it's a piece of music, something beautiful to look at. Back in the days of inpatient psychiatry, when you would have women, mostly women, but it was men too, people suffering from huge traumas, and they dissociate. We would want them to find something physical, like I'm holding a beautiful amethyst stone, and they would have to ground themselves by touching that and describing it and feeling it, etc. But being kind to your heart, if you don't say the kind words I couldn't look in the mirror. There's a self-help guru, Louise Hay, that says, look in the mirror every day and say, I love you. Yeah. For me to say, I love you, Jane, it was just the most, I couldn't even hear it if my husband at the time, or significant other at the time, said, I love you. It was odd to me. But anyway, please, whatever is kind and loving towards you, please say it every day, a little mantra, please.
And use your 5 senses. Like she just said, there's a jasmine oil, which smells, I like it, she hates it. And I had some guy broke up with me. I think I was in my 50s. And I was like, well, that's unacceptable. I don't want a broken heart. In my 50s, I'm not going through that again.
Another Earth's axis.
So I went through so many of them. It was like, I'm not doing this again. So I kept researching it. And Native American women used to stand. They had to stand at this river. And when the white man killed all of their husbands and sons in front of them, they used jasmine oil, and I kept researching it. It was very hard to find 100% because it was a little expensive. The smell, you can get watered down ones, don't do that.
It's you put that flowery smell.
You put that under your nose. Within 20 minutes, it's better than a medication, and I use it. Keep it by my bedside. I do it before I go to bed, and in the morning, if I'm down in the morning, I put it right on. And ladies, although men use this anti-aging machine I use, it was the guy who told me the review. Ladies and men, it builds collagen, jasmine essential oil, so you can put it around on your wrinkles. Hello. And you're happier, and you have fewer wrinkles.
You see, and Joan,
thank you.
She's been telling me this for 10 years. And you see how stubborn a depressed mind or a stubborn mind can be. That sounds perfect for me, especially on half my face, because the residual of Bell's actually atrophies. It looks anti-aging already. So I should be anti-aging the other side of my face, smelling jasmine and being less hateful. I mean, hello, it would be a win-win.
And you just use a little bit.
Yeah. But so, okay, I promise I'm going to do it for like just 1 week straight. I'll see what happens.
Not everything's going to work for everybody. Everybody is so different, including identical twins. Mm-hmm. We had to recover differently. Yeah.
Oh, I know. Yes.
And it was very difficult. I'll say it was many years. Our mother said age would help, and I didn't believe her. Eventually, it does help. But before that, if somebody makes fun of you or you feel like you're hurt at work or something, you can always say this. My ex-husband taught me this. You could always say, you don't have to, but you could. Mm-hmm. Was it your intention to make me feel like awful? Do you know how many psychiatrists or people would say to me, because I was the only one saying it, Joan, not at all. I wasn't doing that. But, most of the time I used to be so funny that the patients used to love me so much that the psychiatrists would never want to say, oh, get rid of her. They knew. Because people, when you disarm them with humor, people were looking for this girl to admit that the only orgasm she ever had was because her father molested her. She had never slept with anyone else. And she was in a wheelchair because she threw herself off of a bridge because of it the first time. And the second time she said, I will be successful. And when I went to school for forensic science, there were a lot of cops. And I asked the cop who was from the town that I knew she was from. And I said, do you ever remember this girl? She was in a wheelchair. He went, he said her name to me right away. He said, she's dead, Joan. She in her wheelchair hit the highway and another oncoming car hit her. That really hurt my feelings. She was in that old building that everyone that really were able to get better were better. That some of the meds were toxic. So some of the schizophrenics did not get better because today's better meds now. We have better meds and other treatments. But that really hurt me because she was such a beautiful girl. And that one act, that's it.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't mean to go darkness.
So again, if you don't balance negative with positive, it's like that whole yin and yang. We all have horrible things that that have happened to us and that maybe still will happen to us. And so balancing it with a little bit of positive, otherwise we are programming our brains.
Yes.
And I would just like to share very, very quickly, my first experience with devastating loss happened to be my very first cat. And it was devastating because he died a little bit young and I had guilt over maybe my parenting, I think. He was my first cat. I wasn't a big cat person. And so what I did, I think someone told me, because I sometimes come up with a good idea, but this one someone told me to do, is get 2 pictures of Willie. One when he looked sick and, it was clear he looked depressed and sick. And then I had another picture of him looking healthy and cute. And both in frames. And back then I would have a computer and I came home every day and sat by my computer. So that's where those 2 pictures were. And every day I cried and cried and cried until I started being able to look at the other picture. And now, and that went on for quite some time. Give yourself some time. Now I can't look back on Willie and cry at all.
And you can do that with anybody. We did that with our parents
Wonderful.
too. We had pictures of them when they didn't look so great. And now what we have around the house, in fact, before we started the show, I said, Jane, you want the ladies? Because we were talking about our mother and all her sisters. They're smiling in a picture. Yeah. Do you want the ladies here while we're on the show? And she was like, no, they've got our back. They're behind us. But, it's a lot of people have died recently and during COVID too, and they don't know how to grieve. And it is so difficult. And yes, you can cry and yell at one picture. And I used to even slap it down. If I didn't like something that they did when they were alive, I was like, that's why that happened. I put the frame down on the table. But then the other photograph, which I always like a smile on the person's face, you remember the times when it was just beautiful. And the more you can do that, the more you don't look back. People say, but I'm never going to forget the bad times. Like, what if somebody molested me? Why should I forget that? You're not going to forget that act, but you're not going to ruminate about all of the details, which is really what brings us down. Yeah.
Right. And remember, laughing and crying, they say, is the same release. And I did so much crying, and I guess I needed to because I needed to feel better and I wasn't able to laugh. But boy, I thought my therapist at the time was going to fall right off his chair because I told him I would get up in the middle of the night because I had trouble sleeping and I would cry for quite some time. And he said something like, about how long, You cry? Oh, because he was a primary care doc before he was a psychiatrist. It was hilarious. So he would throw in a medical question.
See, I like that.
And the time I told him it was almost 3 hours, I really did think he was going to fall off his chair. And, the funny part is now I always remember, I don't think he said it, but I think, boy, I should have hydrated, with all that crying.
Yes.
Yeah. But you know what he taught me? Because he was a primary care doc. And the Bell's palsy I had was a lot more visible back then. And I said to him, why, when I eat, sometimes does my left eye just spontaneously tear up? And back then I used to wear a lot more makeup and, I'd have like some mascara around, like, what's going on? And he just explained to me that during the damage to the nerves during that time, things do heal, but then they heal a little bit slightly differently. And your tear activity, the nerves around there is very close to the nerve that was associated with Bell's palsy.
Yeah.
Okay. But you see, it washes my eyes clean. It's wonderful.
Yes.
There you go. Well,
There's
I like
positive in everything. Yes.
Absolutely. I love the idea of having the two pictures, the one kind of where they're closer to the end, not looking so well. And then, and then the other. And then, you just keep it that way until you feel better looking at both pictures. And then you don't necessarily need the I guess worse maybe isn't the best word, but that picture. So, I like that because there's some losses in my life that are not like super recent, but recent enough. And I think that would be really good,
Yeah.
So
it really helped me a lot when we lost our parents. I think it was 12 days apart, and it was obviously shocking and devastating.
Yeah.
And but it really helped me. I had my 4 photos. 4. Oh, right. Yeah, the one mom, two of our mom, 2 of our dad. And
being a twin, I kind of sometimes think, nobody said this about the title yet. I said, oh, Jane, people are going to say.
I know.
What do you mean?
We did it on purpose.
Hot-wired our brain. We didn't say hot-wired our brains.
Right.
And it just sounded better.
They're so connected, There's a little of that ESP stuff that goes on.
So, yeah. Because our mother was an identical twin also. So I think the dynamic was just so different. Because, and for me, it was helpful because she was the younger twin. So when I had difficulty with Jane, I'd go to my mom and she would explain Rita was like this and that. And this is what I did. It was wonderful.
And I just added more baggage to the backpack I was carrying on my unforgiving mind. Thank you, heart. Excuse me.
do y'all have mental health care providers now?
Well, not right at this moment because we have no health insurance and I haven't had it in so long. After I got off my medicine when I was in my 50s, I guess, now it's more of an alternative route I'm going. So what I have is my medical marijuana doctor and then the dispensaries, of course, which I can't say enough what the marijuana has done. The kindness that I can see in other human beings was always. Jane was a human activist. I was always an animal activist. And again, with your PTSD, when it gets bad like that, the body keeps the score, said it. And I want humans to hear this. Have you brilliantly isolated yourself? And I was comfortably living alone. Things were just easier. Having a human being in your apartment, that's... You've got more than one, or no, you only have the one child?
No, I've got 2.
See there, you already have 3. I mean, that's a lot of compassion. 3 is her. I count her as a person. But yeah, so if you've brilliantly isolated yourself, you're really not living. You really are supposed to have human connections. And a lot of us think that, I have my cat, my dog. I towards the end of my career, I treated a lot of inmates where half of their lives were spent in prison and I realized, wow, he's acting like me, or wow, she was in solitary confinement for that long. She's like me. And we brilliantly isolated ourselves, and you need that human connection. And yes, you're going to get hurt again, and it's going to be wonderful. It will be. There's just a human connection, and it's great to think back on. And where do you get all your jokes about your exes? I mean, that would be fun. Your exes and what happened. I think that's funny.
You need new material sometimes.
Yes.
And I think I vented enough years for a handful of human beings. I apologize if I stole from others. Anyway, I have more self-help books here than I need, and I am really. It's like I go to school every day. We're retired, and yet I make sure I spend a certain amount of time and listen. When it's a bad day, 3 minutes is enough time, and sometimes I try to do it. I do a little something always right before bed. I practice gratefulness before bed because I was also a very ungrateful human being.
I like that.
Thank you.
If y'all hadn't gone into nursing and then psychiatric nursing, if you'd done something different, what would you be doing instead?
Go ahead, Joe.
See, and you could think about this as within families. Sometimes the youngest child is the one who tries way too many careers, and it's not our fault. It's just that way. So I'm being the youngest. In school, they tested you. It came out that I would be a good jet pilot. Again, I got airsick, would have had to take Dramamine, couldn't fly the plane. So that wasn't good for me. So I'm 5'9".
So you wanted to be isolated back then.
Yeah, I'm 5'9", and I can't even hit 130. I would be a model. But what they said was my nose was too big. I got that down, filed plastic surgery. And my butt was too big. That stayed. And today they would take you. I had no breasts. The plastic surgeon, this was wonderful too. I go to get my breasts done because I have no breasts. And he says, do you think I could take a picture? Because I have never seen a female with 0 breast tissue. And it was like, dude, I already want to fucking kill myself. Are you fucking kidding me? That's what you start with. But anyway.
What an asshole.
Yeah. Guys, he's got my pictures. I take my pictures. You want to know why I wouldn't let him? Is because I'm missing a rib I was born that way. Right under your breast. I'm missing a rib. So I can't even wear a wire bra because it hurts so much, but the awkwardness of the sternum and the hole underneath one, it was like, dude, come on, fix this shit and shut the fuck up. But yeah, right. Yeah. Anyway, that got fixed. But I don't know, where were we going with that?
The other things too.
Oh, and besides the then I wanted to be a comedian, but I had anxiety. So a lot of my stuff, I was stopped in my tracks. So what I wanted to be is a math teacher, and an artist. Oh my God, my parents were told she could be an artist, and they were like, well, that could be a hobby. So I followed Jane instead. That's what I just had to follow her. So I wanted to be a whole bunch of other things I'll never know.
Travel tourism.
Oh, that's right. This was hilarious. I said I could do travel tourism. I wanted to travel, but I was afraid to travel. So I was going to work in the travel agency, right? So my parents were bringing her to 4-year colleges. I said, I want to go to Johnson & Wales in Rhode Island. They took me, wouldn't even let me out of the car. My mother saw it and she said, over my dead body, are you coming here? I guess it wasn't in an area that didn't look so safe. So I had to go to a college. Otherwise, it wasn't going well. Jane, what did you want to be?
I actually, for the longest time, I didn't know what I could be because I felt so empty and nothing I just felt like a nobody for so long. And then the way we grew up in our middle class home, a girl, because definitely boys had other options, but a girl would be a nurse, a teacher, or a secretary. And because I was praised for having good grades, I thought a secretary would be too easy. So I was, and of course, I love the whole idea of secretary. I wish I could learn shorthand. I used to play secretary when I was a therapist. Sometimes when we had no secretary, it was just so much fun. But anyway, I chose nursing instead of a teacher, because all I wanted was to get out of high school. I never wanted to be in school. I was so anxious and quiet, and I don't know. So I chose nursing because I thought that, I should just go out and help people. And then that outfit, all that white, what a nightmare. But I had passing thoughts of wanting to go into advertising, but that just seemed like such an unreachable goal. And I am actually currently working on what was in my brain back then that advertising would have been.
Darren and Larry.
But I love Bewitched. I would have rather have been a witch.
Yeah, me too.
I wouldn't have wanted to be and we hated alcohol, and they drank alcohol and had to go to business meetings. But anyway, I'm working on that. Maybe when I start using the jasmine and get more forgiving, I'm going to figure out what advertising meant to me.
There you go. There's always something new to learn about yourself, right?
Right. Yes.
Well, it is time for the magic moment of the stream. So I have this magic wand right here, and it lights up pretty colors. If you could wave this magic wand and eliminate one common opinion or misconception or theory around mental illness, disabilities, talking about mental health, what would each of you, and this is special because you get two. So what would each of you eliminate?
All right. What I would eliminate is back when I was in psychiatry in the 80s, personality disorders were actually used as a primary diagnosis. And very quickly, they were taken away. And what the psychiatrists were going around the world and learning was, and insurance companies would not pay for a personality disorder anymore as a primary diagnosis, because every human being under the age of 18 have raging hormones. We all have, you look up different personality disorders, and you can fit and pick a couple from each one of those, including the schizoid ones. So what the psychiatrist would say to the new residents or nurse practitioners is, I don't ever want to hear borderline personality disorder, narcissism. I don't want to hear that. What I want to hear is, how are we going to deal and treat Axis 1, that primary diagnosis? Because when we treat that, whether it's PTSD, depression, anxiety, whatever it is, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, whatever it is, you will notice that those traits dissipate. So shut the fuck up about personality. Wave that wand, get rid of them. That is a label that does not need to be here. Get that true diagnosis and call it what it is. And what it most likely was back then too, it will be going back to trauma. Yes, does a virus or a toxin cause things? Absolutely. But when you really had a healthy child and they grow up into whatever, and there's no toxins and whatever, it's trauma. And it's how we as a community are going to deal with this trauma, including war zones, poverty. These are all traumas. How are we going to deal with it? We're going to label people and make them further away from us. Get rid of that.
And that's the misconception. You hear, oh, that person has mental illness, and now we're afraid of them. And fear can be masked in many emotions like anger and, like Joan's saying, ostracizing people, and anxiety around it. And I can't marry someone because, oh my God, they're narcissistic or whatever. Well, have you met Mike Landino? Our dad had narcissistic traits. I'm sure I have a few. I'm sure I have a few borderline personality traits, but I don't have to have all of it forever. Yes, there's some that you might, but you know what? What's the whole point of being human if we don't have some differences? And we all have similarities. And I'm tired of this. We make it so that we're so separate, but William Styron, Marsha Linehan, Abraham Lincoln, Winston Churchill suffered from mental illness. I mean, did that mean they didn't have jobs? Look at what Vincent van Gogh gave to us, and he's probably one of the sickest that you'll see, but he needed the olive branch extended to him. That's all he was a hurt person.
Blues singers, whatever those songs are that are the greatest songs ever. I mean, people come from this suffering and they create such wonderful stuff. And instead, unless they're famous, we just think, who's that?
No, we stay away.
Do you know what a person of faith said once? Oh, I wouldn't know anything about that. How would I even know how to treat somebody with depression? I don't know anything about anxiety or depression. Of course you do. You were born. I know you know. Dig deep, person of faith. Dig. I don't know. It was really ignorant. And again, that ostracizes people. What do you mean you? Oh, I don't suffer. Oh, I don't have mental illness. What? Well, that's your. Oh, wow. Thank you.
For Joan and I being in the profession, being educated, being able to support ourselves, say not having to stay in a marriage, I could get treatment. I could go on a medication because I wasn't going home to a family that said, what are you doing? Oh my God. And, I just want to say that one of our mentors, and there have been many, but she passed a few years back. And I just want to say that she said it so many times. And every time a new employee came, I noticed within a few weeks that comment in laughter about the difference between us and those people across in the behind the glass is we're holding the keys, people. There is no difference here.
You can switch at any time.
These are people going through hard times. So that, I think the misconception is, lock them away. Oh, keep them away from me. These are the people that are, because they're not all the school shooters. That's a whole nother breed. And that is school shooting by society. That is not just mentally ill because you came out of a family. That's society's adding into. Yeah. We're all to blame.
There was a newspaper article in the New Haven Register in the late 70s, early 80s, and it was about suicide by cop. And the editorial person who wrote, he said, suicide by cop, please, definitely. That is suicide by society. If a human being has no recourse and doesn't even know how to get about to kill themselves and thinks that they should go out so that a person with a gun is gonna shoot them, that's a problem with our society, not the officer that shot that person.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
That was that. Sorry. Hello, darkness, my old friend. Sorry.
That's okay. One thing that you said is just like, the person of faith who said, well, I don't know anything about that. It's like, yeah, you do, because 1 in 2 over the course of your life, an adult human life, 1 in 2 people will have a diagnosable, whether it's diagnosed or not, mental illness that they are dealing with. So if it's not you, it's your sister, it's your brother, it's your husband, it's your child. You've dealt with it, whether you know it or not. Absolutely, you have.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and open up to any remaining Q&A from the community. If y'all have any questions, feel free to pop them into the chat. And then Joan and Jane, while we're waiting on that, if there's anything additional that you guys want to cover as far as resources or sites or anything like that, feel free. And I will put your socials and your contact info one more time in the chat for everybody too.
Well, there's this guy, he has a podcast and it's called Misfit Nation. He's the guy that works with veterans, and his name is Rich LaMonica. And you just search Misfit Nation, and I think that's his job, but find out resources, at least for veterans, for that. And then if you're a person really, looking for help and you're just not sure you're going to go to see a therapist, I say try it out, because what happens in psychiatry, and we were taught this, there's no ego in psych. Yes, there is, but you're taught you're not supposed to. So if a patient comes to you and then never comes back, you think, did I say something? You're not. Don't go going into that. What you want to say is if it doesn't work out, you can go to somebody else. Years ago, what they said to me, my first psychiatrist, after a couple of years, she said something and I felt offended. But again, it's me. I should go to the mezzanine and figure out, why did I feel offended, Joan? Again, why is that comment? riling me up. It's because I felt that way in my past. Oh, that's why. Anyway, I didn't like what she said. So I wanted a new psychiatrist, and the company at the time said, you can't have a new one because you should know that you have to work that transference out or counter. Because I've had both now. I've been a patient and a therapist. so anyway, did I work it out? Maybe not with her. After that, I started going to a male therapist, I think, at that point. But yeah, I say, you don't have to stay with one. Just like a hairdresser. Our sister is a hairstylist, and same thing. You cut their hair, she's like, they never came back. You wonder here and there. But again, the ego is, maybe I have fine hair.
Yeah, I had a client who, she saw me long term, but every once in a while she would go and see someone else and then come back to me. And because she wanted the other
diversity.
She wanted a different perspective, because the way I say, tell me more, or, oh my goodness, that sounds devastating, tell me more about that, or have you considered this? It might be different from the way someone else says it.
Yeah.
And, I've had at least 3 different therapists. One was long-term, the other were short-term. And I highly recommend it, that you would get a little something, because every human can offer something. The words of kindness come in many forms.
And I want to recommend, here's what I want to recommend. I did 45 minutes, and most clients used to say, oh, good, I have 15 more minutes. It's like, no, you actually don't, but we would do it anyway. I started going after a while of, instead of 45, there's a half hour. It's more of a brief therapy. I found that more helpful than, sometimes awkward silences, or no, I have no feelings about that anyway, or you're pushing on that one. I don't think that's the issue.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I like that. All great recommendations. And if you're looking to find a therapist, I put a resource in the chat that's got a lot of different therapy finders that work with insurance, that work if you don't have insurance, and all that kind of stuff. So feel free to check those out. Well, Joan and Jane, thank you guys so much for joining us today. This was a lovely conversation.
Thank you so much.
You.
It was. Thank you so much.
I hope this discussion about mental health providers and mental illness has given you valuable insights and a deeper understanding of the human side of therapy. Therapists are not immune to the challenges of mental health or the results of trauma, and their willingness to share their own struggles can be a source of inspiration and connection. Breaking the silence and destigmatizing mental illness within the therapeutic community is an essential step toward fostering a culture of empathy and support. I want to extend my deepest gratitude to all mental health professionals who courageously share your own struggles, experiences, and perspectives with those around you. Your dedication to helping others while also navigating your own mental health journeys is truly commendable. If you found this episode thought-provoking and insightful, I kindly ask you to leave a review and rating on your preferred podcast platform. Your feedback helps me continue to bring you meaningful conversations and valuable content. Remember, seeking therapy is not just about feelings and fluff. It's a transformative process that goes beyond sitting on a couch and talking. It's about growth. It's about self-discovery. It's about finding the inner strength to navigate life's challenges. Thank you for joining me today on Even Tacos Fall Apart. I hope this episode has inspired you to embrace the importance of mental health and recognize the reality and humanity within the therapy profession. Until next time, take care of yourself and remember that even when tacos fall apart, there is beauty in the process of healing and growth.